You guys will never close the gap on what you think you need before making a jump. There will always be a gap. There will always be a gap. Yes, we can do things to try and tighten that gap, but at some point, like, you just need to jump, man.
Welcome to the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast, the ultimate destination for accredited investors and entrepreneurs seeking alternative wealth building strategies. Discover how to fast-track your journey to wealth and time freedom by thinking outside the box. If you're ready to join the ranks of the Contrarian Capitalists and learn the most effective ways to reach your financial goals faster, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.
Thank you, everyone, for joining another episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast. I'm your host and your favorite silverback, Sylvania Harrod. And on today's episode, I'm going to bring you somebody that I've known for a very long time. He's a good friend of mine. I consider him a mentor in multiple ways. And I'll tell you a very interesting story about in the first couple of weeks of us meeting. I always think about him because I have this magical amount of stitches right there in my head from just being a little bit too arrogant and going out a little bit too hot. And I love him personally. I'm not going to give you a fancy introduction. I just call him as a father, a husband, and just an overall good human being, Mr. Shawn Rider. What's up, brother?
Well, I appreciate it, man. And I'm going to need one of those all black t-shirts with that silverback logo on it. You are pulling at my heartstrings with the all black and white and silver color palette. So I think it looks great. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I personally love those colors. That's just, it's like, I don't need a bunch of fancy things. It just works.
That's right.
So funny enough, I was thinking about you this past weekend when I was going through schedule. My wife was walking around in a Shenandoah CrossFit t-shirt as she's doing it. And I'm like, man, just think about the journey. So I know that, like, for yourself, you went from being a teacher to now full-time entrepreneur over the last 12 years. Just help me help the audience understand a little bit about your journey, where you're at today, and we'll just take this conversation where it goes, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to look back at the journey. I started coming out of college as a licensed high school teacher and started there, but knew that although I enjoyed teaching and I wanted to be a football coach, very quickly realized I couldn't do what I wanted to do financially on a teacher salary. And so I got into business ownership, started a CrossFit gym when I was 22 and rode that CrossFit wave for quite a few years. And I made a lot of mistakes and it took a long time to grow it early on, but we put the right team together, got some good mentorship. And, 2017, 18, it started to take off really well. But we had a really good year and a half, 2 years leading up to the pandemic in 2020. And then basically March of 2020 changed a lot of things for that business, for me personally, for my family. We brought our second child into the world during the lockdown. And, coming out of the lockdown, being locked down for 72 days changed my opinion on a lot of things. And the fact that business didn't recover as quickly as I thought it would change my opinion on what I wanted to be doing with certain areas of my life. So I started going a different route, started helping more business owners. Again, thankfully, me and my wife, she had a W-2 job that she actually just walked away from last month. We had that stability there, thankfully, but we were stewards of money. We saved a lot of money. And then I realized I needed to start putting that money to work outside of things. Even though I loved owning businesses, I needed to park that money somewhere else that built wealth for my family outside of waiting 40 years for it to do so. And so me and my wife took about 2-3 years to really start plowing money into real estate. Before that, we put it into high early cash value life insurance policies, which we might tap into today. But here, fast forward again, we closed that CrossFit gym down a little over a year ago and opened up a different type of fitness facility, a metabolic franchise, which is more in line with the type of training that me and my wife prefer and believe in nowadays. So here we are, fast forward. I've opened businesses, I closed businesses. I've tested different things that I thought I'd be interested in and didn't like them. And so here we are, 36, married, 2 kids. We have a real estate portfolio. We have an active business that a brick and mortar that we are active in. But the biggest thing that me and my wife are trying to do right now is just basically have I don't want to say 100% control of our time and freedom, because things happen, people get sick, people need you. But from a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, we're really happy with the flow of our life right now. And that's something that I want to see happen for a lot more people, in particular, small business owners and investors.
You hit on a couple cool points that you were talking about right now. So to give people backstory of just some of the things that Shawn's talking about. Shawn is one of the ideal people that I talk to when it comes to lifestyle design. He understands the entire framework of like, figure out where you want to be in a couple of years and this reverse engineer the process, but make sure you have autonomy the entire time, because some people are wired to want to be in the zoo, and that's fine. You know, the zoo of life, where it's like, you know, when you're going to get fed, you know, when things are going to come, and you can go through your merry way. And then there's other of us that are meant to roam the jungle. We embrace uncertainty. We're fine. We're contrarian in nature. We're going to go ahead and be like, all right, cool, as different things come and go. And that's the thing that I've loved about like watching you over like since COVID and that period of time, is just watching that journey and be like, you know what? I consistently stay on a North Star. Tell people about like the family vision thing that you guys do consistently. I think that's the most fascinating thing.
Yeah. So at the end of every year, we do a family planning session. So we have a vision for 3 years out, and then we try and reverse engineer that down to what we have to do over the next 12 months to get us there. And those conversations, sometimes they're not always easy, especially when my wife was at a W-2 job and I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm contrarian when it comes to like dedicating myself to building someone else's business. But that made my wife really, really happy. So we had to talk about, hey, 3 years from now, where do we want to be in terms of how we're going to parent our kids? What do we want to do financially? What types of trips do we want to take? And, you know, like the past 3 years, it worked out really well, me being an entrepreneur and her being a W-2 income earner. But when we went into this year's family vision and family planning conversation, and I asked her, I said, hey, do you want to continue being a W-2 employee? In the past year, she immediately said, yes, I love my company. This was the first year where she paused and hesitated. And she was like, I'm not sure. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. In my mind, I'm like not getting my hopes up. And, but over Christmas break, she had about 2.5 weeks off. And she just realized that she didn't want to go back to work. And for her, it was about rushing. She still loved her job. She loved the company. She loved her boss. She obviously loved the benefits of that company. They really took care of us. But then she started to realize that there's a lot more than just the financial component. She didn't want to rush out and drop the kids off at school and drive 90 minutes to the field. She was sick and tired of texting us and saying, hey, I'll be home at 5:00 tonight. And then she hits traffic because a doctor kept her 10 minutes longer because he had to see 5 more patients before he talked to her. And then she gets home 45 minutes later. And, you know, some people will hear that and be like, well, that's not a big deal, getting home at 5:45 instead of 5:00. But for our family, it was super, super important. We don't stay up until midnight. Like we go to bed at 8:30, 9:00, and we start winding down early, and we want to relax. We don't want to be rushing around late at night. And day in and day out, that's taxing. So it's interesting that we're doing this podcast at this time, because I do want to say openly and transparently, like 12 months ago, me and my wife didn't have to change anything. Like we were making more money than we've ever made in our lives. We had an investment portfolio. We had consistent cash flow. We owned businesses. We were in a freaking the best spot from a financial standpoint in our lives. And even though we're stewards of money and we had a really good backstop, like we decided some of these things, they weren't bringing us fulfillment anymore. I hesitate to use the word happy, but because people have, you know, some negative connotations to finding happiness, but whatever it is, happiness or fulfillment, like we weren't thrilled about some of the things that we were doing and associated with. And it wasn't anything about the people. It was just like, we wanted to go in a different direction with some areas of our life. And so I left another company. I closed the business. Fast forward a year, she's leaving her company. And even though like monthly income's fine, we have the backstop, but we're in a different position now to where we don't have the consistent income that we had a year ago. And, you know, that brings a little bit of its own stresses, but the dividend it's paying in other areas of life, like we'll make up the money. As my mentor, Jeff, and one of your mentors, Jeff Smith, says, like, money is the easy part. So I think some people are so worried about making decisions that will impact them financially, definitely in the short term, to where it blinds them from seeing the financial payoff in the long term. Because I promise you, if you make a short-term financial decrease, to find fulfillment and happiness in other areas of your life, family, fitness, time freedom, it will make you so much happier and fulfilled to where the money will come, because we just have to be way more efficient with our time. So we're building these other businesses, but we're not doing it in a 12-hour work time. So we're still having our time with our family. We're having our weekends free. We took a trip to Disney World last week, 5 days, and we just opened this business 2 months ago. That never happened the first time that we opened a business. We didn't take a vacation for 6 years. Our honeymoon was 2.5 days long because we had to fly back. So now we have these different rules and these guardrails built in our life. As you said, lifestyle design, lifestyle engineering, to where the life we want, we mold that first. And then as we take on projects, build businesses, do things for income, invest in properties, partner with people, it has to fit within the lifestyle mode we want, as opposed to the opposite. People work their asses off, whether for their company or another company, and then the lifestyle is just kind of like what happens as a byproduct of that. We've kind of flipped that formula, in my opinion, the way that I'm explaining it now and thinking back to
it. So hearing you talk about that, it reminded me of, so I was in a similar situation. It was probably January of last year, because I was at a place where, so I built listeners know I call it an FU button, like my FU button is when you're making enough income that overtakes your W-2 income. And so I hit that point about 5 years ago. Then at that point, I got to make the decision of like, all right, what do I want to do? Where do I want to spend my time? At that time, kids were young. We had other things go on. Then COVID hits, right? And so COVID hits and we get to a point where I decide to go, I get my dream job. I work for my dream company. I'm there engaging. But something in around Christmas time, 2023, I'm just sitting there going like, all right, cool. We got wind down time. I was a little bit exhausted. January 2024 hits and we're supposed to start ramping back up and I don't want to. And it was unique because I'm like, I really don't want to ramp up. And then the business that I had built as well was in a place where like, I didn't really want to do that one either. I'm like, wow, is there something wrong with me? Is something going on? And it's like, you're trying to get yourself to go to like get motivated to want to go do it and like scale and grow, and like the love was just gone. And I remember sitting on a beach where me and my wife, we take every May time frame, we take a few days, just us, no kids, no nothing. And it's just like, where do you want to go? A beach with no kids and do nothing. Wake up, eat, exercise with each other, go to the beach, like and eat dinner when you want to. Don't have to worry about lunch, and I'm just laying there in the water.
Have a non-rushed orgasm.
Yes, completely. Yeah. Like it's not like in and out. It's like a 5-minute AMRAP, like still in frame. That's all I got. It's like, no, I want to enjoy this and just lay there with nobody else knowing what's going. Yeah, I told you, green pies daily make the relationship very, very healthy. So
hell yeah.
But like as we're there, I'm like, I'm done. I just knew that there was other things that I wanted to spend time in, like that had meaning to me. And I just knew that my time of being a caged bird was over. At that moment, I said, all right, I'm going to leave this. And so her and I were sitting there talking to each other at dinner. And she's like, you're done, aren't you? She's like, she just knew it on me. It's like, yeah, I finally came to completion. Within 30 days, everything changed. And so I said, all right, we got runway. We have other things that are in place. I know we'll be fine, but I want to spend the next 6 months, year, 2 years, just really figuring out and chasing the thing that's chasing me. And so like, that's the phase of life where things are going. And I remember talking to a couple of people that I used to work with, and they call me and they're like, I've never heard you be happier in your life. It's weird.
Dude, this is interesting that you're bringing this up, because I feel like what me and my wife are doing right now is probably where you were Q1 last year. So our Q1 this year is where your feelings are last year. So she went and visited with her former boss 2 days ago, and they went and saw these doctors that loved my wife. And my wife came home and said, the amount of people that saw me today in these offices, these other nurses, these secretaries, and just told me I looked happy. That's what they were telling my wife 2 days ago. 2 days ago. And like, my wife is super bubbly, which is why they loved her, which is why her company loved her, which is why she did great. But even that, her being removed for a month and a half she can walk in and people can feel a difference in her. We see it at the house. I mean, we see it my kids see it. They don't have to ask mommy if she's going to be home in the morning or at night anymore. She's picking them up from school. We're picking up the kids together, whereas I picked them up 99% of the time over the past year. And so it's interesting. The one thing that you and I have is we have the backstop. So I don't want to glance over that is,
yes,
if you want these things, but you're an asshole with money and you're not a steward of money and you make $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, but you're spending that money. Now, Sylvania and I are all about lifestyle engineering. But if you have goals, but you're attached to certain things to where you always have to show up to get the next nut, to pay for the next month of lifestyle, you will never be in the position that he's in. So you have to spend less than you make. That is such a low level personal finance thing that people must do. There's obviously levels to it. And I'm a big fan of high early cash value life insurance and then investing in cash flow assets. And it definitely does not happen overnight. For me, it happened over like a 7-year period. But what do they say about it? Like, oh, it took a long time to happen. Then it all happens, overnight. Like it does happen overnight after you do all these other things. And so we came into this year when my wife made that decision, it was like, worst case scenario isn't that you lose everything, because like COVID showed us that people get fired, their incomes can go to zero. But like as entrepreneurs, like we can make adjustments on the fly and you can add value into the world to where even if you went to zero overnight, it probably is not going to stay there that long. And so for us, we had to talk about some worst case scenarios. It was okay, we have our backstop. We're not going to zero. We're going to zero with her income. And we're actually adding money to the expense line because we had to pick up another car. We had to pick up health insurance. We had to do all these things that the company paid for before. So not only were we losing income, we were increasing our expense sheet at the same time at the beginning of this year. But we're like, what's worst case? We have income from other things. It may not fully offset the lifestyle that we're accustomed to over the past 3 years, but we have this backstop. Are we comfortable in the short term and medium term? Is where the conversation went. Are we comfortable liquidating that to buy ourselves the time to build these other things? And for us, that trade-off was hell yeah. Dude, we are in our mid 30s. We're healthy. We're going to live to be 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. God forbid accidents and emergencies happen. And so in our mid 30s, are we willing to liquidate what we worked hard for and the nest egg we built to have more time with our kids? To go back to the point about the beach, like not only having a better orgasm uninterrupted at the beach, our kids are still in private school. So we can have uninterrupted orgasms on a Tuesday midday after lunch. And the answer is yes, that is worth it with the backstop that we have. And again, the numbers could be irrelevant to people. Like we know what our financial ecosystem looks like. We're willing to take it down to win in these other areas. Again, we're not trying to eat freaking ramen noodles for the next 5 years, but we've shown and proven that we are valuable people. We will add value into the world. We will help people. And the byproduct of that is financial reward.
Yeah, bro.
That was a lot. Sorry about that, but
I loved everything that you shared because it made me sit here and think about, like, I always look at the graph of time spent with children. And you see it in the first phase of life. I remind myself of that quarterly, like it's like the first phase of life, it's here. And then you see how much time spent with parents. And then all of a sudden
straight down off
a cliff. And it was through those moments I remember saying to myself, like, what's the absolute worst thing that's going to happen? I have a skill. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, this dog can hunt. I have a skill. I have things that are there. I've built it up over time. And anybody that's listening, you guys have a skill. You're an accredited investor. You're a high income earner. You have a skill that you can possess. But if you don't have a clear plan and guidance for somebody and a group that you can have accountability with according to your plan, because I can write a plan down on this wall up here, just like most people's New Year's resolutions. You work in the fitness industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
January, how good are plans?
Nothing.
Yeah. I want to see you on March 1st.
Yeah. Right.
You still here March 1st? Maybe. You still here June 1st? Now we're cooking with grease, And so like having that level of accountability and having people in that circle, because being a contrarian at times is hard because everybody else is going a different direction.
Yeah.
And you're like, nah, I'm kind of going to do this.
Yeah.
And man, it's amazing though, listening to you.
My little quote at the bottom of my email when I was a high school teacher, because I was 22 and all these teachers would send emails and they had all these like educational quotes in their email signature. So I found one for me, and mine was observe the masses and do the opposite. like they all had these like fun educational quotes, and I was just like, fuck that. Like I'm always going to do the opposite of what the masses are doing. And so like I want to go back to the kid thing too, because that's super, super important. Is like you have a slightly older daughter than ours, but our daughter's 7.5 now. And I told my wife, I was like, we have 6 more years with her before friends become more important than us. Now, we are trying to build a family to where our kids love spending time with us. And we want them, the measure of my success is when they have families of their own, they want to come back home. But like, even when they're teenagers, we're going to be showing up. Even if they're like, they're embarrassed by their parents, we're going to be showing up to everything. But realistically, statistically speaking, and psychologically, when they turn teenagers, they will want to be with friends and they will be at other things more than they are with their family. So I said 6 years. We could liquidate everything we have over the next 6 to 8 years to spend time with our kids. Again, this is worst case scenario. Things aren't going to zero, but we could liquidate everything. And 6 to 8 years from now, her and I will still only be 42 to 44 years old. We have no time at all and all the time in the world. Like, and that's that's why being contrarian is hard, because you actually see both sides of the coin, right? Like I have no time at all when I zoom out far enough and see that the average person only lives to be 77. That's going to fly by in a heartbeat. But I also have all the time in the world when it comes to choosing what I want to do today when my daughter gets off school. Like taking her to a daddy-daughter dance tomorrow night for the first time. I saw that you did that the other week, right? So I have my first one tomorrow. Like, and then contrarian is like, yes, I can build big income now, and we're going to strive for that. But I know that if I don't, I have more time to do more later. Like it's just, and it can create a lot of stress if you don't know how to handle that. For me, it's just dialogue. It's a conversation with myself to see where it's kind of like an internal podcast. What are you thinking today, Shawn, based on what happened yesterday and how you reacted or responded to it? Okay. Were those feelings the type of feelings that you think are productive towards this thing? And then like when I I love being in the weeds, but when I get too far in the weeds, the contrarian part is pull yourself out. When I get too high in the clouds and I'm not doing enough day-to-day like weed trimming, Shawn, you're flying too high. Get down in the dirt and get fucking dirty. Like this ebb and flow, a lot of people can't handle that. But entrepreneurs, I think, we're really good at it.
Yeah, it's beautiful that I'm just thinking about what you're saying. So I remember daddy-daughter dance is magical. But here's the interesting thing. So this is might be the 5th year I've done daddy-daughter dance. And so my daughters are turning 12 this year, turning 10, and turning 7. So this was the first year that I went that the entire time they spent time with friends. So like they were just me and one other dad, because I'm like, all right, I'm hovering next to my youngest daughter. He only has one girl. This is his only kid. I'm like, this is my 3rd daughter. And I go, so how about we get to know each other? Because my kids will come grab me when they want to dance. But the rest of the time, I'm like balancing dances between different kids and then going back and forth with their friends. And like my oldest daughter is still daddy's little girl, because I take her to soccer practice. I'm in her Girl Scout troop. I'm her flag football coach. And my wife made me intentionally have dates with them monthly, at first, because at first I didn't know how to operate that way. But once I looked at the outcome and I started looking at how many days I have left or how many Fridays I have left before that pendulum starts swinging and she starts getting interested and puberty starts hitting, I'm like, damn, I got to make sure I dial in those moments, So to the ability and the willingness for our family to be like, okay, I'm willing to double down on presence, because I was having a conversation earlier today and the gentleman was like, oh man, like he was telling me he's an opportunist, I could tell. And so he's like, you see all these opportunities and all these deals going around in real estate. Why aren't you out there closing it and you have access to capital? And I was like, because I don't want to. Bro, there's infinite opportunity. There's always opportunity. But I have to figure out the windows of time I choose to do this thing because I have two loves in life, business and family.
Yep.
So it's not really balance. It's just a matter of like, right now I'm on this time. Don't call me. I'm not going to answer.
Listen, I love that you brought that up. Full transparency to the people listening. I own a single location micro gym. You can make decent money with these. You're not going to become wealthy owning a brick and mortar micro gym. But me and my wife love this. So this is what we want to do on a day-to-day basis. We own a real estate portfolio, some of that outright by ourselves, some of that with an operating partner, because I understand what real estate can do for us. I don't want to touch the real estate. And I know that we could get where we want to go faster if I went all in real estate, both money and time. I don't want my time spent looking at the same fucking broken down homes over and over and over again. So this is a statement to be made that like, I know that I could go use my skills for things that are way, way more financially rewarding, but then I'm going to be in the shoes that my wife was in earlier this year and where you were a year ago and be like, oh, that was okay, financially cool, but now I'm fucking like bored. I don't like this. I haven't had fun in a year. I don't want to be that guy. So we're spending our time with family and in a business that we enjoy because that's going to get us out of bed in the morning. But we're going to take the financial reward from some of those things that we're doing and we're going to plow it. Now we're partnered with an operator. We're going to plow it into that business and let him use his skill on what fires him up. He loves driving the properties. He loves sending me videos of the new walls going up and the new kitchen and new bathroom. And hey, you need to sign this paper so we can get the refi going. Like, cool, perfect. So partnering with someone that has the skill set and passion for the things that we don't have, but we can mend together with like peanut butter and marshmallow and make a damn good sandwich and build something together. That's pretty exciting for us right now. And so I just wanted to throw that out there for the people listening that don't know me is like, we chose to stay in a field that is not that financially rewarding because we enjoy it. We enjoy it.
Hearing you talk about what you're talking about actually is going to bring a conversation to like me and my wife that we'll talk about in general, like different things, because she's wired just like you and Kate. Like she loves exercise and she loves those different things that go around. And I was just telling her like, hey, you get to choose, like she loves health and PE. Like that's what she loves to do. So on a daily basis, she wakes up and she goes like, I want to teach and have kids fall in love with being healthy and moving their bodies. And so it's kind of funny that sometimes I talk to guys who are like, your wife works? I was like, yeah, she chooses to. That's her choice. Like that's what she wants to do. But if she wakes up tomorrow and says, I don't want to do it anymore, I want to do something else, we'll find an asset as far as like, where's your heart desire to go through there? Because the reality is that like when I looked up the term of retirement, it's like, okay, you stop doing the things that you don't want to do and you start doing the things that you really want to do. And at that moment I go like, okay, well, I'm retired. Congratulations. I get a medal. Maybe I'll buy myself a plaque.
That's like, the contrarian. That's the contrarian definition of retirement, right?
Yeah.
Looking at the masses, like I said, the masses, their definition of retirement is quitting work, but they've done nothing to set themselves up for financial success in retirement and lifestyle success in retirement. So retirement ends up not being what they hoped and thought it would be. So kudos to you for finding that contrarian definition of retirement and recognizing that you're there already, regardless if other areas of life need adjusted along the way, whether that be financial, wife leaving a job, wife going back to work, moving from this town to that town to make ends, like whatever it is. Like as an entrepreneur, we're comfortable making some of those changes and choices because we define things differently than other people. And we're not worried about what the reflection is on social media. I mean, I got caught up in that a while, like, like, so kudos to you and your family for doing that. That's huge.
Everybody knows today I'm just targeting Canada because like kudos to the NHL for making an all-star game feel like a nationalism. You know what I mean? Like
my 4-year-old son was screaming at the TV last night, "Boo Canada, you in the red." Boo to you. And then of course, like we go to bed at 9:00. So we only saw the first period. And then I have to tell him when we woke up, hey, Canada won in overtime. And then I go back to be a better a good sport. I'm like, we have to respect, because my kids were like, no. And I was like, we respect that they won in overtime. It was a great game. They're great players. But yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. I'm like, how, like, you had to think about that. Like, because we have the NBA where it's where I don't want to watch the NBA All-Star game. Like, I used to enjoy watching NBA because I thought I would play basketball, but I can barely watch the product. NFL is, I was in Orlando when they were playing flag football. I'm like, guys, I'm not going to go see grown men play flag football. Like I want to see my athletes do things.
Yeah. I mean, they don't want to get hurt. And then here, like some of the guys in the Four Nations tournament, like they're done for the season. Like they got season ending injuries, not playing for their NHL team. And I'm like, oh shit, that's going to be, it was great for the fans, but some of these teams are screwed the rest of the year because what the NBA and NFL doesn't want to happen. It kind of proved that's why you don't do that. But it was great atmosphere, great marketing, and good for the sport, which I want good. All sports to be successful.
Me too. Like I just love that. And that was kind of like the space where I was telling my wife, like, yeah, this is so amazing. Like, we sporadically were like, hey, the last Friday, Super Bowl parade. We go and we're like, all right, just pull the kids out. Take the day off. We're going to go up there. We just booked the hotel. We
love it. Maybe I don't know what your other podcast guests are going to talk about. And so hopefully people don't get bored of these real life examples, but like people, they hear they hear the term financial freedom or freedom of time. And it's such a broad stroke, but what does that actually look like in your life? It's what Sylvania just said about taking his kids out of school and going to a Super Bowl parade. Last night, okay, we're filming this on a Friday. So last night was a Thursday night. That is a quote school night. Well, our youngest son's best friend, his friend's family needed to take the other kid to a doctor's appointment, a very important doctor's appointment, and they both parents need to be there. So guess what? We volunteered to have their son spend the night. So last night on a school night, we had a sleepover with a friend and then we took them all to school in the morning. That's why we do what we do. And we do, like, you've made sacrifices in other areas of your life that you don't need to make public. And I may say, like, sometimes we pick up our phone a little too much. We're not perfect. Sometimes we woke up early and to work. Sometimes we worked late, but we have created these guardrails for these little moments. Now, Sylvania takes him and his wife to the beach in May, but like, they're not doing that every day. Their perfect life does not involve, I'm assuming here, so correct me if I'm wrong. Their perfect life at this season of your life does not and is not defined by sitting on the beach 365 days a year, drinking mocktails and tequila. Like, that's not what we're striving for, man. We're striving for the sleepover on a Thursday night. We're striving for Philadelphia Eagles winning a Super Bowl and actually being at the parade. Like, we're striving for going to the mountains of North Carolina in the middle of April just to get away with my family. And then come to find out, my college team, App State in North Carolina, is playing my wife's college team, JMU, at App State for baseball. So we're going to get baseball tickets. Like, that's what all of this is for.
It's so true. So like, we're going to Cocoa Beach. Like we're going to spend time with grandparents and like, oh, cool. We're just going to go. And we were talking about it yesterday. Like, do we want to drive down and just like stop along the way? Do we want to let the kids take the train because they've never taken the train? And I'm not thinking about like, damn, I didn't see freedom as being able, like, going to somebody and asking them for permission to take a vacation with my family. And so it's proper planning in advance, because I just knew that. Hey, and I ask myself these questions every couple of years. Like, in 3 years, if anything was possible, what would I be doing? Who would I be serving? Like, how much ought I be making? And that number of making is always determined based upon family needs and desires. And how much time freedom do I want to have? Because my ideal day looks completely different than other people. Like, I wake up in the morning, I make sure I get the kids on the school bus. Like, I'm there, I'm awake, I'm packing their lunches. On certain days, like last night, I looked at my kids and could tell they were a little tired. So I'm like, guess what we're going to do? I'm going to let you guys sleep in. I'm going to let you sleep in, and I'm going to drive you because of choice. And so I drove a couple this morning, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, one of them's not feeling well, just go ahead, lay down on the couch, be able to do things. If I need to move my meetings, I'll move them if that's what's required of me at this current moment in time. And I think it's all because this didn't happen accidentally. It was planned. We asked those questions of ourselves. And I love your quote that you said before on your signature, and maybe mine. Like when everybody's going right, turn left is what I think of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like whatever the masses are doing, I will do the exact opposite and I will challenge it. Kind of drives my wife nuts at times because I will question everything that I think is mainstream and go through that, man. And so I think that I want you to envision this, and I want you to talk to this person. The listeners on here they're in a phase where they started having those questions of, I think I want to go do something, but I'm not sure what I want to go do, but I need to make a change because I heard the year 40 is very important. And so I'm getting close to my year 40, where a person makes a decision of like, am I going to stay on the career path, or am I going to choose another option and go down that route? What's some recommendations or some things that you would say to that person? Like, I make a lot of money, but like I want more. I don't have time freedom. What would you suggest to that person?
Yeah, I think the easy route out is telling people to quit their job when they're not feeling it, but I don't think that's the right answer. I mean, if you're making money, but you don't have money, you're in a bit of a predicament. So you have to prove to yourself that you can keep money. And I apologize for those of you that understand basic personal finance, but like, I cannot overstate the importance of, as long as you're like mentally healthy, right? Like if what you're doing is driving you nuts and insane and making you a mean person, bad person to those that you love, get out of that situation immediately. You're going to figure it out. But those of you that have a little bit of time, okay, if you don't have the financial backstop, get a little bit of it over the next 90 days, right? Yes, cut back on some lifestyle stuff, but save a little bit of money, okay? If you have that financial backstop, what you haven't had is space, because you've been waking up and doing this routine and going to these things, and you just haven't had the space, which if you listen back to earlier in the podcast, my wife finally made the decision to leave her job when she had 2.5 weeks away from it. Sylvania made his decision when he had 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Like a lull, but maybe you were still working, but it was right before the ramp up. And you were like, I don't want to do the ramp up. Right. So if you haven't had the space, I wish we would normalize like short-term sabbaticals for like everyone. Of course, like I have employees too. So if my main employee took a 2-week sabbatical, like we'd have to figure it out. But like, I think people need space. But if you could, even if you had to take 2 weeks unpaid, and if they can't do that, maybe that's telling you need to walk away. If you don't have the next thing lined up, I'm confident that just buying yourself and giving yourself that you will find something. The first thing you take a crack at after leaving this thing that you think you should walk away from, the first thing you try after that may not be right, but you're swinging, like you're in the batter's box. You're not going to hit a home run your first at bat, right? You got to start swinging the bat. So I want to see you somehow, some way. I don't have the perfect answer for the people for this question. You have to somehow, some way find space. You need to find stillness. You need to find quietness. You need to go literally out in nature and just sit comfortably with your thoughts. And probably the first couple of thoughts you're going to have aren't going to be pretty. You're going to question things. You're going to say you just need to stick it out. You're be fine, blah, blah, blah. You know, if you're having this conversation, you know deep down something's off. Explore that. But you cannot explore that in the hustle bustle of the day-to-day grind. Okay? Have an honest conversation with if you have a partner, spouse, and you have kids. If you need 48 to 72 hours to go stay at a really nice hotel 30 minutes from your home, have a genuine conversation with your partner about doing that, because amazing thoughts, ideas happen when you're not being screamed at from a 5-year-old or not being at work 9 hours a day. Maybe that's an imperfect answer.
Yeah.
But this situation is an imperfect situation. I didn't have all the answers to this journey. You led the podcast with Shawn. Tell people about your journey. It's a lot easier to tell people about my past journey. So thank you for leading that, than telling them like what the journey is in the future. Yes, we family plan. Yes, we vision plan. But I don't have a perfect painting on what life looks like 10 years from now.
Yeah.
I'm chasing the feeling of the life I want, not all the things I want. And like, the feelings I want with my kids, the feelings I want with my wife, the things on how to get us there and I'm open to this. I'm open to the flexibility of them changing. If my wife comes back a year from now, is like, I want to go back to work. Hell yeah. Let's see how that fits while maintaining the things that we love about this life that we have right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, because if I think about kind of what you were saying as you were going through that, I have no idea what the future holds. All I know is what today is, and so like I'm willing to live each day intentionally and just show up, because there's a variance of life. It's a delicate dance, but it's something that individuals and this is the other part I was really thinking about was really, remember the great pause, the time during COVID. After that happened and certain things started going back, so you mentioned 72 days, there was a place where there was this thing called the Great Resignation, where it was a lot of people, and it started to get even harder now to these professionals because return to office is fully getting to equip. So they've had all this freedom and all this time freedom to be able to have hobbies, relationships, spend time with their children. I was at a birthday party with a mom who was so drastically upset because her husband, for the first time in the lifetime of their kids, has been there to put them to bed and read them stories. And that is being ripped away as return to office returns. It's those moments of pause, of reflection, that you can sit down and say, what has meaning to me? And I think that's the greatest gift a person can have. It's just spend some time. Marinate on it,
And I'll just throw this out there. Like, I don't like cliche quotes, and I've already said it. Like, this doesn't happen overnight, but it's also not always going to feel great all the time. Like, you struggle, your wife struggles, your kids struggle. Like, we're all human. And so like, just be aware of that. And that's one thing, like when my wife left her job, like as soon as she left her job, then I think my kids went to school one full day the next 30 days. And so what we thought this normal was going to be like, we didn't get to taste that. So what are we at the end of February? We've only had one, because we had Monday off this week for a holiday. We've only had one full quote new normal week so far this year. And we're already 2 months into the year. Like Q1 is only a month away of being done. And so we've even had moments in the past month and a half that was like, oh, this is not what we thought it would feel like. But then we have to step back and be like, that's because this isn't how life is going to feel in June. Like there's not going to be 30 sick days in June. It's the middle of summer. So like we can sit on a podcast and talk about all the awesome shit that we do with our families. But we're all human. All of our families have dysfunction on certain days. But I'll tell you what, when you're doing the things that you enjoy and love with the people that you enjoy and love, the time it takes to come back to normal and homeostasis is so much shorter. You remember like being frustrated for days on end over certain things, probably at different ages. Like the speed at which I get over things now, just because I'm not tense, I'm not fired up, I'm not at a job I hate. Like those are things that it's hard to describe and talk about on podcasts. People just have to get to a point to be able to feel that for the first time. And then once they feel that, their shoulders drop and they're like, oh shit, this is why we took that leap of faith. And going back to the other answer about that, the other question you asked me, the one thing I missed there was like, you guys will never close the gap on what you think you need before making a jump. There will always be a gap. Yes, we can do things to try and tighten that gap. But at some point, like you just need to jump, man. I did it when I left teaching. I did it when I closed my first business and my gym business. I did it when I left this mentoring company that was paying me really, really nicely. Like the gap wasn't closed. My wife did it last month before she left. Like the gap wasn't closed, but we fucking jumped anyways, man.
I resonate with that so deeply, just thinking about what you're saying, because for me, I hit that point where I hit the FU button, but then 5 years passed, 5 years passed. And even as I began to realize and step into the space of, damn, this is actually what I want to do. That's when you start having turbulence. And it was just like turbulence happened. And then one thing is stripped out. And you're like, damn, do I really want to do this? But the moment I've always gone to a moment of just like ejectocito, after that turbulence goes, it's kind of like the storm passes. And then it was like clarity started hitting. Ideas started happening. Yeah. Things I couldn't see before are there. And you don't realize that you can actually be underwhelmed. It's kind of nice, to to be in a place like, just be in a place of whelm where you're like, oh, these ideas, these thoughts, these things you couldn't hear, see, or smell, taste, all of a sudden start existing. And it's not cupcakes and rainbows. And it doesn't seem like it's a compiling of a period of time where you're like, oh, like your wife going ahead and like, you seem so happy. Shit, I didn't even know that was a possibility, you know?
Underwhelmed and bored. Like my wife is such a go-getter, high achiever. And like, that's why she was successful at her company. That's why they're sad that she left. Does like an hour or two of work for our businesses. And then she's like, the amount of time I feel like I'm being unproductive. And I'm like, no, let me show you the KPIs of the business. What you just did, you just sat at your laptop for 90 minutes. That's enough for what we're doing. Like that's enough to get the rewards that we want. Now go watch Bridgerton on Netflix. Like you have the choice to do that now. And so she's had to get comfortable just being like done way faster than she's used to and being bored and taking the dogs for a second walk in the day instead of just one. Like this is the life, man. And again, something might happen 3 months from now that we're going to have to address and tackle and get back in the weeds and hustle hard. But like, we're not hustling every day in perpetuity. It's not the life we're living. And hopefully the people listening to this podcast, the Contrarian Capitalists, can resonate with the things that we talked about.
Absolutely, brother. So as we land the plane, how can people learn more from you and connect with you?
Instagram's probably the best. Just at Shawn _Rider _SHAWN_RIDER, or find me on Facebook. Those are the best places. I'm pretty easy to find. All my businesses are on my phone. So if you shoot me a message, I'll see it fairly quickly, somehow, some way, unless it's after I pick my kids up from school. So I'm usually available 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock every day. 4 hours is my work time. But that's how they can find me, my man.
Perfect, man. Well, thank you for coming on here, sharing some gems with the audience. I can't wait to transcribe this and just turn it into a powerful article for those on LinkedIn as well, man.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Well, everyone, I actually got this from a shirt I got from Shawn. So stay hungry, stay humble. Appreciate you guys. Cheers.